Welcome, party people, to Tales from the Field. In sales, we all screw up. And it's in those moments that we screw up where we learn the most. And I'm committed to figuring out what that looks like to make it helpful and have some fun along the way. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tales from the Field podcast. I'm your host, Amy Volas. And today, I've got a special treat. Special someone. Krystal, you are an enterprise sales powerhouse is the right way to put it. So for those that don't know you, and if you don't know Krystal, you're missing out because she's amazing. For those of you that don't know her, tell us who you are.
I think you overinflated what I do. So I'll just peel back and say, yes. Correct, accurate. I am in sales. I'm an enterprise sales executive. And yeah, I've been in sales since I was 18 in some sort of category of sales, from retail, wireless, slinging iPhones from when iPhones were super, super duper cool and brand new, to slinging drinks as a bartender, to selling SaaS, doing inside sales, transactional, mid-market, and yes, now enterprise selling. And I absolutely love it.
Welcome to the big time, girl. So, Krystal Bonillas, am I saying your name the right way?
Bonillas. The L's are tricky. They're silent. But
See,
yes.
This is why. This is why we don't assume. Lesson number one, don't assume and say somebody's name. So I'm already making a mistake in front of everybody. Krystal Bonillas, welcome. Mm-hmm. I like the L a little bit, though. Maybe it brought a little flair. But you know what? I'm not going to mispronounce your last name. That's not how we're going to go today. That's not what we're going to do. So I want to dig in with question number one. As you think back on your sales career, what's one of the things that has happened where you took a little tumble, it hurt a little bit, you picked yourself back up, and you got better for it?
I think before I share the sales field, just a bit of context and background. One of the things that I now believe is one of my strengths, one of the reasons I excel in a sales role is I love building relationships. I'm a very relationship-oriented person. And even when I was in transactional selling, so you're talking 100 cold calls a day, smile and dial type world, I didn't follow the script. I just had conversations and built relationships with people. Even if the average contract value of what I was selling, or like the MRR, was like $150 a month, I was still building a relationship. And so, in making the transition from transactional all the way into selling enterprise, one company comes to mind, one opportunity I had lobbied for myself for months, and I'd advocated to managers and said, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to take on the big whale accounts. You have to let me do this. And one such opportunity landed in front of me. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but I'm sad to say I absolutely just bombed in this opportunity. And I bombed because of the same strength I just shared with you, because I am so relationship focused that I actually abandoned my sales process, took my salesperson hat completely off, which you really can't do, and just was so relationship oriented with this customer that I let it get the better of me, and it just completely blinded me. So I'll dig in on the details if we're ready to dig in there, but I think that that's a little bit of maybe helpful context on where I think I dropped the ball. I think it's because I just got too cozy with my customer.
So I want to ask you, is dropping that ball then, so part of the fail, is it that you lost the deal, that you didn't get the business?
I absolutely lost the deal. Yes. And so here's what happened. So when I finally had this opportunity to work with this very large account, for context, in this specific sale, you win the business by competing against the status quo. We were first in the market with our product. This was not a competitive landscape. You had to convince your customers in a consultative way. You had to educate them that there is a better way to run your business and there's a technology that can help you. So we were always up against status quo. Because that was such a huge part of the success plan of the sale, you didn't just have to work with, your executive stakeholders. You really needed to gain buy-in from the people, the boots on the ground, the users of the software, because change management, right? Biggest fear of any leader is they purchase technology and then it flops because the people on the ground don't have buy-in. So I start, working with the prospect over months. I have this COO out in North Carolina and Virginia bought in. She's got her own respective business case. She's, absolutely bought into what we're all looking to do. I also have the team in San Francisco with a separate business case. So I'm really just building a groundswell here. And then finally, we take this to our executive president of the company, who is completely skeptical and says, there's no way my teams are ever going to use this. You need to get buy-in, of course, from the users of the software, which this is a massive company. So I say, okay, challenge accepted. Well, their ask of me was that I fly out to Walnut Creek, California, which I had never done at this time, by the way. Remember, this is my first really big opportunity. So they're like, we want you to fly out. We want you to present to an entire room of, our employees. And we want you to, show them what it is that you all can do. And we will then regroup after. I agreed, but I completely neglected to set expectations that I needed at least one key decision maker in the room. We'll get to what it ended up happening, but just so that everyone can hear, I was so excited. I went and I bought a new dress. I went to Nordstrom. I picked out this nice professional black and blue dress with a white cardigan and conservative pumps, and I was so excited. And my story to my team and to my direct manager was like, I've got this. You're trusting me. I've got this. So I fly out and I get there on site, and the conversations were incredible. Just as I had heard from the COO on the East Coast and the teams on the West Coast, I had conversations over the phone with, they had real challenges that we could solve. And they were giving me stories. The majority of our project solved operational inefficiencies in the application and renewal process for commercial insurance. So talking to these account managers, and they're saying, my customers, my insureds are filling out, pieces of paper, 7 to 20 pages long, coming in, handing it to me, and they've misspelled their name, their business name, their tax ID. They're like, it takes us weeks. So they're giving me all of this gold, but nobody who can make a decision is there to hear it. In that meeting, I'm feeling on top of the world because I'm like, there's no way that I'm losing this deal now because they are all so bought in. I did my demo for them. They loved it. They're chiming in. They're giving me additional ways that they can build this into their workflow. And they're like, thank you for coming out. We love this. I'm so excited.
I nailed this. I did exactly what they asked me to do.
Amy, they brought me cookies. There's a place downstairs that all of them always go to get cookies. And I was just about to head out, and one of them had skittered downstairs and bought me cookies and brought them up and was like, thank you for coming out. This is going to be a game changer for us. And we just really like you here. Have some cookies. It was like I was one of the team because that was like their go-to lunch spot. So
you're like, challenge accepted and slayed. And here's the contract until
oh, holy smokes. So I get back to Austin. I'm here in Austin. I get back to Austin from my trip to Walnut Creek, California. And I start setting up, next steps to regroup because the whole next step was, hey, let's discuss, after you've had your internal conversations, our next steps, because absolutely your team, we can absolutely support them. They love this. That call happens. And on the call, the president, the person who, again, very skeptical, which change management is hard, especially in the insurance industry, says, yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to come out. And it sounds like you really hit it off with our team. But this doesn't sound like a priority for them. And it sounds like a nice to have, not a need to have. And they thought it was neat, but they didn't really think that they needed it.
Ugh.
And in that moment, I was so disappointed in myself because I have always done that piece really well in mid-market. So much so that, Amy, my process was always to say, yes, I'll show you all a second product tour of our product, But here's my ask. I'm going to need your COO and your president of the agency on that call. So what times are they available? Let's pull up their calendar. And I always had those people in the room. But because this was such a big client and I was so excited, I completely abandoned that sales process and that part of it and just nodded and said, yes, I'll fly and talk to your, champions. And then what do, Amy? What do you say? Sorry, Mr. President, they're lying to you. I met with them for an hour and they all told me this. It was a tough spot. And in that moment, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to, to pivot. And in the end, I did not win the contract because I did not successfully challenge the status quo in a way that my stakeholders were ever present in that deal and knew this is how this is going to help your team.
And so challenging the status quo, if we go back and unravel the process a little bit, would be let's role play. I haven't done this yet on the podcast. First for everything. So let's say I'm the person that says, Krystal, we're excited about what you need to do for us, and we think that you can. That being said, without user buy-in, we're not doing anything. So what we need you to do is hop, skip, jump right on over to Walnut Creek in that fabulous outfit from Nordstrom and get their buy-in and hear from them firsthand what they're going through and ultimately how you can help us. What would you do now? So role play. That's my ask. I'm the buyer. I'm telling you that that's what I need. Now, what would you have done differently?
Yeah. So I'd say, well, first of all, thank you. I think that that's a great idea. I would love to gain the buy-in from the people who sit closest to this problem. I can tell you all day why our product is great and why it's solving problems for other customers. But at the end of the day, the only thing you care about is whether or not your employees and your frontline staff is going to carry the torch with this and successfully lead implementation. I'm sure that this comes from a place of you having implemented technology in the past and it was kind of forced upon them and they didn't like it, right? Has that ever happened to you all?
Maybe.
I'll just say safe space and I'm right there with you. But here's an additional thought, because first of all, I am happy to do that. Let's set it up. What I'd ask is that I'd love you to be there. I'd love for you and Jill to be there, because what better way to learn and hear what your employees are facing with customers than to sit there right there in the same room and just be a kind of a fly on the wall and hear that conversation. I understand that it's difficult on the day-to-day, and that's one of the reasons you're asking me to go out there, right? Is to understand and learn, is this something that will help them? There's no better way. I'm obviously going to tell you if I go out there that this is a challenge for them. Better if you hear that. So would you be willing to join me? And I'll work with your schedule to meet with your team and to be part of that conversation with us.
It depends on my calendar, but I can have my assistant join.
Okay. So
You're like, oh no.
I got PTSD because he literally, I'm not going to say names, but literally that is one of the people that was like in the room that was supposed
Girl,
to convey all
I've
of
been
this
here before. I've lived this dream. Why do you think I'm role playing the way that I am? This is very real for anybody that is listening. I am not being mean to Krystal. It's literally part of when you are at an executive level and you're engaging this way. This is how a lot of the time they respond, because they don't have time. And it's why they have a staff. And I'm going to empower them. And you've got to deal with that. So I want to go into something else outside of the role play, because you're handling it the right way. I would have done the same thing. The only thing that I might do different, and this is so interesting because we haven't done this on the podcast before. The only thing that I would do is to say, in good faith, I don't think it'll be a productive meeting unless you can be there. So I totally appreciate your schedule and I take our partnership seriously and I want it to be a painkiller, not a vitamin. And the only way for us to be able to confirm or deny that together is to have you see firsthand what I see firsthand, so there's no confusion. When you're able to do that, I'm here for that.
Can we just like hop in a time machine, you and I together, go back in time? And can we just say exactly what you just said?
Yes, we can. And by the way, I learned how to say that really well because I too got really seduced and caught up in relationships. And for anybody that's here, you should always care about the relationship. But sometimes the best things that we do in our relationships, personally or professionally, is to hit the pause button like we just did and to reestablish expectations together. And that will reveal so much. Because if for some reason you said what I said back to me, and I say, no, it's just my assistant, then this isn't that big of a priority. And sometimes when we remove the opportunity, we see how serious our buyer is about what we're talking about to confirm or deny whether we still have more work to do. So, Krystal, flash forward to today. What does my powerhouse do now that gets back to the art and the science of relationships? And I love this about you because you walk your talk. I know this firsthand. It's a superpower of yours. You genuinely care. And for those listening, you can't fake caring. When you care, it comes through. When you don't, it comes through. And I would argue for anybody that doesn't care about any of this, you may want to think about a different profession. Sorry. Straight truth on a Friday. When we're recording this, you might be listening on Tuesday. I don't know. But here's what I'm going to say. That's so key. And that's like one of the best, brightest things about you. Conversely, on the other side, it's also fueled by process. So you talked about taking a left turn on the process side. Your emotional relationship side took over above and beyond anything else. What do you do now where you're still managing the relationship? You're still amazing, Krystal, but, or and, not but, and, actually it's and you're setting expectations that tether you still to a process that meets them where they are while meeting you where you are at the same time. What do you do now?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, and I didn't mention this, but the first thing that I do now is I understand that if it's an opportunity that size, there's no sense in me doing that and going that alone. I actually should have involved someone else from my company, because I think in the end, the reason I got so swept up in the relationship is because it was easy to do so. I was the only person from our company representing the company in that deal. So working larger deals, they talk about multi-threading on like the sales side from like who you're reaching out to in the prospects world, but also multi-thread in terms of like bring other people in from your company to help you. So that's one of the things that I do. And then, yeah, setting expectations. The way that you just talk through it, I'm going to listen to this podcast back. I want to be able to replay that and say it myself. But I do say something similar in that in terms of it being productive, in terms of it giving them the value that they need. Why are we having this conversation? I want it to be meaningful. I want it to bring value to you. And the only way it's going to do that is if X, Y, Z. So doing a way better job of expectation setting, sticking to my process early and often and holding to it, not getting swept up in the relationship is something that I do now. It's something I will admit, because I'm a human, that it's a fine line that I have to walk all the time, because I naturally do. You are absolutely right. I absolutely care about the people, not just the business opportunity. So I walk that fine line. But I check myself. And one of the ways I check myself is by going to my leaders and saying, here's the opportunity. Here's where we are. This is what they've said. And, if I start to go a little bit too far towards getting swept away by the relationship, I have that guiding light in my leader who says, okay, but peel it back. Why would you give so much? What are we getting? Kind of thing is really helpful for me. But I'll be honest with you, Amy, it is a fine line, a balance that I am still having to navigate. in my conversations. But that said, I would argue, and I think anyone who's worked with me will agree. I know anyone who's worked with me will agree. The relationship piece and how that plays a part in the way that I run my sales process is my secret sauce. I mean, it really is. So as long as I set those expectations and do follow my process and don't abandon it completely, we're in good shape. We are in good shape. But yeah.
And fun fact, Krystal, me too. Right? Like I was thrown into the deep end of sales, and it was always enterprise sales. I came up through the ranks of full cycle, doing all the things and having very little support and figuring it out. A lot of how I figured it out was through my ability to have real conversations and real relationships. Part of the best process, in my opinion, is understanding the things that need to happen to get mutual agreement. And sometimes mutual agreement is confirming that it doesn't make sense, but you're leaving the door open for later when it does. And even if you would have set that expectation and that person would have been in the room, maybe it wouldn't have worked out anyway. And that's okay. It's what are we doing to keep the door open, to keep the relationship intact while working through a process that helps us confirm or deny quickly together. In enterprise sales, when I mean quickly, I mean establishing the next thing that needs to happen, because enterprise sales is a series of a lot of small wins to get to the big win. But when I think about that, sometimes the biggest win is just like in personal relationships, right? Like you recently called me, unbeknownst to me that day, didn't know, didn't expect it. Ring-a-ling-a-linga, Krystal's on my horn. I'm here for it, here to help you. And we have a relationship, and I shot you really straight about something in a process that you needed to consider. It pointed out a blind spot, and you moved on with your day in a better way. Same thing with our business relationships, right? There's no difference. Part of the best way we can care for our customers is to be able to have real business discussions. Working a sales process isn't talking at them, it's talking with them to confirm that the next step in the process makes sense. And if it doesn't for them, what does? And can you actually accommodate that? So that was a really big aha moment for me, Krystal, personally, was I can still have my relationships and I can still have tough conversations, and the outcome might be no, but am I doing my work to make sure that those people are still intact, that when they meet somebody, enterprise sales, guess what? It's a big, big, big small world. And all these folks, they hang out together and they talk to each other. And if I act like a jackhole in that moment because now I'm upset because my process didn't work, guess what? It's not about your process. It's about their agenda, their business. When we can help them solve problems, reach goals, get better, that's when we start seeing some things moving. So that being said, don't ever lose that part of you. And anybody listening, don't ever lose that part of you. But also don't get it twisted. What we think are friendly relationships, sometimes our buyers look at, wow, that's a rep that I really like, but I got to make a business decision. Don't get that twisted. That's why it's really important to show up, to be able to have a conversation around, I'm hearing this, being clear on the signals. And those signals speak to the process. And when that starts taking a left turn, that's when we do what we did with the role play of like, I hear you, want to accommodate it. For me to be able to do that, these are the things that need to happen to do that well together. Can you do that? Do you want to do that? Sometimes you're like, no, sure don't. Well, then guess what? Not going to chase my tail anymore. I'll see you on the flip side. And you can have these conversations, ladies and gentlemen, when you're like Krystal and you work your tail feather off every single day to establish a pipeline for the short term, the near term, and the long term. I'm going to get off my soapbox here because you know what, Krystal? You got my blood pressure up, girl, in the best of ways. Don't do not ever lose that side of you.
We don't want anything to happen to Amy Volas. I refuse to be the podcast guest that sends you to the hospital.
No.
We're not doing that. Not happening.
You got the blood pressure up in a good way, but here's the thing. don't lose that part of you. It's the most beautiful part of you, personally and professionally. It's what makes you stand out. And it's why your buyers hang out with you.
I honestly, thank you for saying that, Amy. And I know you run your business the very same way. And likewise, that's why people gravitate towards you. It's why you have repeat customers and you have referrals. And I mean, and I don't do, and I know you don't do this either, but I don't, like you said, you can't fake caring. So like, I don't pretend to care. And I hope that that comes through to them. And I don't do it for referrals. Like I do it because that's just naturally I want to convey. Like I do care about what you care about. Active listening is such a huge thing for me. Like if what my product does or my company's offering is not a fit, I'm not going to try to shoehorn it in there. Right. And I think that there's a lot of respect that, that I've earned from my customers for that reason. And you're right. They'll come back to you and they'll introduce you to people who, who can help you get closer to your goals, or maybe they'll become your direct customer. But I love that. I love that that resonates with you, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of the same stuff I do on LinkedIn. That's like, fake this passion or fake this relationship and I just can't. I can see that in my own personal lives. I can see when someone's faking it. It's not a good feeling. It's icky. I don't like it.
And like attracts like. So, ultimately when you care, you can't fake that, and it comes through in everything that you do. And when you're faking it, that ultimately reveals itself and it works against you. And so this is how you have a long-term career. And I would say, even if a deal doesn't go well and you handle yourself in a professional and responsible way, and it's okay to say, I'm really disappointed. We spent a lot of time together and it's been really big treat getting to know you. And I can't thank you enough for bringing me to the table for consideration. I'd like to stay connected because this has been incredible. And you never know where the paths cross again. Would you be open to that? Instead of being like, what can I do to close the deal today? When you have a pipeline, you don't have to chase, right? And here's the fun thing. You've been in the same industry in different roles. And because of the way that you conducted yourself, because you do care, they still take your call all these years later.
Crazy that you would say that, because that president we just talked about in that story, when I took the next role, I actually called him not to sell him the new product, but because of his, I don't want to keep saying skepticism, because it wasn't like he wasn't doing it. He wasn't, materializing that out of thin air. Like he really was like, I don't know that what you have will work. I asked him if he would be willing to let me pitch him on the product I was selling, still in the insurance industry, and if he would give me his hot take on, does this make a huge difference? Or how do I position this in a way that makes more sense to people like you? So he did. He took my call and he listened to me, he let me pitch, and he gave me some great feedback. And I was like mind blown. But I thought of him because of that deal that I lost. And we did have a good relationship despite me losing the deal, because I said something similar to what you just expressed, like, thank you. Sorry we couldn't work together now. Let's stay connected. And he let me pitch to him when I went to the next company.
Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. So, Krystal, as we round out this lovely conversation, I just love that you just dove right up into the deep end with me, and we've peeled back these layers. For anybody listening, this has been an incredibly useful and very real and very honest approach to stuff that happens every day. And we all do this, right? And look at Krystal. She is thriving. So, that being said, Krystal, for anybody that's listening, what would you like them to take away from what you learned out of anything that we talked about? What are the top maybe like 1 to 2 things that you really hope that you conveyed during our time together today?
Yeah. So the first takeaway that I'd like, anyone who's here listening to kind of bring with them out of this is trust your process. Don't abandon your process. Continue, be a relationship driven person, be you, be genuine, but never abandon your process. And even if it's with the biggest opportunity you've ever had, maybe that's a good time to stop and pause and check yourself. Are you getting super excited? Are you rushing out and buying new clothes to get on this flight instead of sitting down and checking off all of the things? Have you done everything in your process that is going to get you to where you need to be? Check in with yourself, especially in those big deals, and stick to your process. And the other thing would be, I think, just because we just talked about it, even if you followed your process, you have an open door now with that prospect. So whether you win the deal or you lose the deal, there's a relationship that's built there that could lead to something great in the future. So be a good person. Thank them for the opportunity to have worked with them. Keep that door open, because for me, and this will be the way for you as well, but for me, it has led to some really incredible opportunities just by, closing the door in a way that kind of leaves it open for the future potential of whatever could come your way. Those are the two things. Trust your process, stick with it, and also build relationships that are long-term, end things the right way, even if you didn't get the deal over the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are words to live by. Krystal, this was amazing. I just can't thank you enough for showing up, leaning in, being open, being honest, sharing something that was painful to go through at the time that helped you remind yourself of the things that matter, and for saying it out loud to all of us. That's really helpful. And that's really what this whole thing is about. So we all stumble and fall and make mistakes. And really, those are the moments that truly help us get better, where we grow. And it's not all doom and gloom. Look at Krystal now. So thank you, Krystal. I appreciate it. For anyone listening, thank you. I'll see you back for the next time, and really appreciate it. Bye, y'all. Thank you. You've been in sales. I've been in sales. And in sales, it's a journey where we all have stumbled. And it is in these moments where we grow the most. So for anybody listening, I hope that this was helpful. This has been a Sales Feed production. If you're not familiar with all of the fun things that they have up their sleeve, check out salesfeedmedia.com.